God be God as us and through us. And that which seems impossible becomes truly possible in our lives. I want to set the tone for our work this morning by sharing an illustration from Tracy Goss's book, The Last Word on Power, which has been the influence for the whole series in May. And she writes, she shares this story, and I know a lot of you probably saw the movie, but it's really powerful. She shares this story about Rudy, which tells the story of a blue-collar youth growing up in a steel mill town who creates an impossible future for himself. We first see Daniel, Rudy, Rudinger, as an eager 10-year-old, making a solemn declaration: someday I will play football for the University of Notre Dame. In the eyes of most people, however, Rudy is an unlikely candidate for a number of reasons. First, he is far too small physically to match anyone's conventional image of a football player. Next, he doesn't have the athletic abilities. Despite the beliefs of others, though, he trains and works out incessantly. Nothing's going to stop him. He set his intention. They say he isn't smart enough to get into Notre Dame. And in fact, it takes him 2 years of determination and dedication at a community college and 3 rejections from Notre Dame before his transfer to the school occurs. They say he isn't rich enough, and he should work in the local steel mill with his father and his brothers. And the reality, which is the lowercase r, is he doesn't have the money for college. So he works at this steel mill for 4 years and saves up enough to cover his tuition. So Rudy was a young man who did not know what couldn't be done. After he enters Notre Dame, he joins the walk-on practice squad. Battered and bruised daily by the varsity linemen, they used him as the human dummy. This is the truth. This is his intention was that strong at 10 years old, and then he moves on. He's following it. He holds on to his dream. He has resolved by this point that the impossible dream involves running into the playing field with the team, but not actually playing. You see, he has let go at that point of his dream turning out the way he thought it should. Okay, that's that surrender of the shoulds. And we spoke last week about releasing the idea of how we think things should be. And to release the attachment to the outcome, to set our intentions, to be specific, to claim our good, make statements of truth, and then let the law outline it for us. So that's really true surrender, because it's extremely difficult to let go of how we think things should be. Very difficult. But Rudy's guts, good nature, and raw determination impressed many people who meet him, including legendary Notre Dame coach Rev Palagye, who promises Rudy that he can dress with the team on the field for just 1 game before he graduates. So he's allowed to put on the uniform. But Palagye retires before he can fulfill this promise to Rudy. And in the fall of his senior year, with only a few games left, Rudy's name does not appear on the players list. This setback propels Rudy to hit bottom. For the first time, he feels himself on the brink of defeat, ready to throw in the towel and quit. Okay, so he didn't really release the complete attachment to the outcome. And like I said before, that's challenging. He was very disappointed. And we get disappointed in life also when things don't turn out the way we think they should. But his friends point out to him how much he has accomplished, despite the fact that he didn't make his goal to play on the Notre Dame football team. He is set to graduate from one of the top universities in the country, if not the world, despite his blue-collar background. He has made one of the All-American teams, despite his size and lack of athletic prowess. His determination had become an inspiration to his teammates and to his friends. Rudy's disappointment takes him deeper into the place of accepting that life does not turn out the way it should. It turns out the way it does. And yet, the dream is worth pursuing. The dream is still worth pursuing. He decides to return to practice, to finish out the year doing his job 100%, being a Notre Dame football player and knowing that his impossible dream is not going to happen. When he returned to the team, he finds that his name is on the players list after all. And that's kind of like a little universal theme to conspire to bring about the good. Those things happen. So he dresses for the game and stands at the sidelines for the entire game. This is the last game. And then the truly impossible does happen. With less than a minute to play and the pressure from the team, the coach allows Rudy to play. I'm getting God bumps all over right now. In the last second of the game, Rudy sacks the opposing quarterback, and then the team carries him off the field. They carry him off the field. This film is based on events that took place 30 years ago. And since then, Rudy has been the only player since then that has ever been carried off of the field of Notre Dame. So you may or may not think that Rudy's goal was meaningful. That's not the point. His life provides a dramatic example of someone who didn't know what couldn't be done. It didn't even come into his consciousness. What he did is that he moved into this place of accomplishing and making possible that which seemed impossible. He held that intention so strongly in his mind. And so after we do the groundwork, we then need to make a declaration of the impossible, just like Rudy did. Having made the declaration, Rudy had the power to stand for what he believed in, to stay in action regardless of the circumstances, and to move the possibility that he declared a reality. He believed this was going to happen with all of his might as a 10-year-old. With this kind of power, the kind of power that is not encumbered by habitual ways of thinking of the past, he is now able and capable to handle everything that life threw into his path. Our next step in thriving is to make a declaration that brings forth a future through you the moment it is spoken. The moment it is spoken. Everything happens in divine right time. So that's always why patience is required of us, and belief, a strong determination and belief. Now, for a declaration to be authentic and have the power to create a future, one element is essential. The person who speaks that declaration must have the authority in the arena in which he or she is declaring. A judge has the authority to sentence a convicted criminal. A minister has the authority to declare a couple married. An employer has the authority to hire or fire people. So who has the authority in the arena of your life? This is a pretty easy question. It's kind of like who's buried in Grant's tomb. You! You have the authority in your life. Okay? You have complete authority in regard to what you say is possible and what is not possible in your future. Only you get to decide that. No one else can decide it for you. While this may seem obvious, it is extremely important to understand that in the past, most of us have not taken this authority. We didn't even realize we had this authority. As a function of our striving strategy and our refusal to completely surrender, we have given away our power without even realizing it. We have given away our power. Our power to determine what is possible and what is not possible in our lives. We have given over the power to the past and to our logic, that logic. Prior to now, what is possible in the future has always been determined by what has been possible so far. Maybe a little improvement along the way, but this is the way it is. So this is the way we continue. Anything impossible in the past must be impossible in the future. If you believe that. If you believe it's impossible, because it's always been impossible, well then it will be impossible in the future. Ernest Holmes talks about principle not bound by precedent. I'm sure we have, who have been studying science of mind are very aware of that. Principle is not bound by precedent. Or we have been unwilling to accept the impossible because we have erroneously believed that only what I can logically figure out how to do to achieve is what is possible. I got to really make it happen. Remember, that's the striving place. And so you moved into a place of striving to create the impossible, to release ourselves from the past and from the notion that we can only achieve what we can logically figure out. How to achieve is accomplished by making these 3 specific declarations that I'm going to give you, which brings into existence a unique dream of possibility. It's so much freer to move from that which feels impossible, that we can't even think about it, to a realm of limitless possibility. All things are possible if we declare it and if we believe it. Okay, so